Today we have a Foodsaver Vacuum Seal. Model fm2435 ECR. And the complaint is that the buttons stopped working. So the seal and VAC Seal buttons stopped working. So we're just going to give it a quick look-see. Plug it in. And I just opened it up here because it started to come on like it was being engaged, and I want to make sure that there isn't anything stuck inside of it. There is an extra piece of bag, those bags, everything looks good. I'll put it back in position. Okay. Not sure again why it started to go off there. Let's put a piece, see if we can seal this bag. We'll put this in and just put it here and then press seal. And nothing. Okay, so it took off and started to seal without me telling it to. Try this again. So here, there we go. Doesn't seem to give me a choice of picking between moist and dry food. And I'm pressing seal and getting nothing. And I'm pressing VAC Seal and getting nothing. No. So and then we'll turn it on. Can't get it to go off. And trying to place this and put it in position and tell it to seal. Okay. So it did take off again. Sort of like for no reason. Looks like we're going to have to open it up and have a look inside at what's going on underneath this button pad here. So hopefully we can get to that. There are screws here, and then the feet come off, and there are screws here and here. Of course, yeah, so after taking off the 4 screws, there's 1, 2, 3 tabs that go in from the bottom into the front bezel here, and there's 1, 2, 3 tabs that hold the bottom onto the back. With that, we should be able to open it up and get to the circuit board, which is where the keys are located that are giving us trouble. We'll take a minute and pull that circuit board off, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so we disconnected, pulled the screws out, the 6 screws out of this circuit board, and disconnected a bunch of the wires and pulled it back and pulled the harness off of the keypad and took the 4 screws out of that. And I'm just getting ready to look at the keypad itself to see if it's membrane or little switches. And the answer is it's little switches. So there's good news and bad news. The bad news is these can fail. The good news is that these are pretty easy to test, and I shouldn't even have to take them off the circuit board to do that. So it's going to take a couple minutes to just put these through their paces and see if they're behaving as we expect. Hopefully one of these switches is bad, because that's easy enough to troubleshoot. If the problem is in the circuit board, it's not as easy to find. So, but we'll start with the easiest part, which is the switches. So there. Okay, I discovered kind of by accident that with this all plugged in and hooked up, that I was able to get it to change behaviors by giving the board a little twist. So originally the symptom was you would turn it on, it would go immediately from dry, dry would flash for a second, and then it would go to moist. Both Seal 2 and auto VAC Seal would be off, and the power light would be green. So you'd have a green light in moist and a green light here. And pushing the buttons made absolutely no difference. And by twisting the board, I was able to get it to change from dry to moist. The auto VAC Seal cycle kicked off, and then it automatically went over to Seal, but I got a fault on that because I didn't have the sealer hooked up on the power board. So on further inspection, if we look at the back of this board, I kind of noticed this when I first looked at it. I did not do that. That's the way this board was from the factory. So if you look at some of these solder joints, they really leave something to be desired. So what I was thinking was I would go through and just hit every one of these joints and kind of, including on the chip, and see if that makes a difference. At this point, it can't hurt. So that's the plan. We'll see how much of that I end up putting on tape. And if all else fails, then take a shot and reflow. The chip. Well, you can see I've already done the other side. And there we go. That should do it. Clean it up with some alcohol. Call call it done. Plug it in and try it. Okay, so before we turned it on, remember we would get a brief dry and then we'd go immediately to moist, power would go on, nothing else would happen. Turn it on. Okay. It stays on dry. I push the button, it goes to moist, push the button, it goes back to dry. So it appears as though the button's functioning properly. I'm going to try to run a cycle. It won't work. It can't finish because the heater's not hooked up, but let's see if it takes off. It does take off. Let's see what happens when we try to seal it. And it goes red because the sealer is not hooked up. So, looks like we may have fixed this by reflowing the main chip. Let's put it back together or see if we can get it back together and test it one more time. All right, this is the last test. Try to turn it on with it open, of course it doesn't work. Close it, lock it up, it goes to dry like it's supposed to. You can change between wet and dry. You can start a cycle. And I heard it turn off, so there we go. feels kind of warm. Let's make sure it makes a bag. So first thing we'll do is we'll seal. So we just put this in, close it, turn it on, operate, seal. It heats up. When it gets hot enough, it turns off and the light goes out. It's done. And we have a seal. Always have to put things inside the bag for drama. So I've got remote control of my screwdriver, and we'll see if we can vacuum seal those up. On. Vacuumed. Looks like the seals held the vacuum, and looks like the element got hot enough to seal the bag. Proof is in the sealed bag. So I guess I'd call that one fixed, and we'll need to get in touch with the owner and give it back. I'm trying to turn the camera off. I wonder where the remote is. Sheesh.